I'm going to call up my first speaker, Michael. Up first is Michael Clement, who is the Executive Director of the Institute Innovation of Gatineau, an incubator and accelerator working with startups, offering tailored programs and co-working space to help them make their first million. Michael is passionate about learning things, more importantly, applying the knowledge to create value to improve the human condition. Tech, science, and entrepreneurship inspire him. And I'd like him to come up and provide us with an overview of the Web3 Capital Region Community Group, which he is heading.
Thank you, Veronica. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be here in front of you today. Thanks, Josh, for the invite. Thanks, everybody. So, as Veronica mentioned, I am going to be talking about community building today. It's a subject that I'm very passionate about because I've had the opportunity to build a community myself on the other side of the river. Who here also refers to Gatineau as the dark side, or used to? Anyways, like that's how I used to refer to it when I used to live in Ottawa. About 6 years ago, I was actually incubated at Invest Ottawa, as you all know. And one thing led to another. I had the opportunity to be incubated at this new burgeoning incubator. And much to my surprise, after having made the move over, I realized that there was not much of a startup community there. And so I was presented the opportunity to build the startup community on the other side of the river, which has been a very enriching experience. And that means everything from startup programs to startup events. We just started Fuck Up Nights. We're hoping to start Product Hunt soon. Why am I saying this? It's because it's important to remember the role of community in building almost anything these days. And Web3, which is the main subject of tonight, is going to be built on top of communities, in fact. In the past, we always started naturally by building products, building tech, trying to find a market. And then I think we got a little bit wiser after Silicon Valley went through a few cycles, and we learned that it's actually the market that can tell us what we should be building, what are the problems that are out there, what are the pain points that we have to solve. And we started building from existing needs. Web3 takes that a step further, and it starts with community. If you put the community together, you build the critical mass of talent, coaching, expertise, capital, facilities, infrastructure. You can build something really interesting on top of that. You can build products, you can build companies, you can build organizations, and maybe even governments one day. Who here has heard of network states? Nobody. Okay, so that's going to be definitely a subject of conversation at our future talks, network states. So some people believe that we'll be building entire governments on top of Web3 technologies like the blockchain. All right, I've got an ask for everybody. In order to build the Web3 community here, which is almost non-existent, I need your help. In order to build the critical mass, I want to get people who have expertise in certain things, right? Blockchain, smart contracts, tokenomics. Naz is going to give a fantastic, I don't know where Naz is, but he's going to give a fantastic talk about this in not too long. Oh, there you are. You're like literally in front of me. And, you know, this is kind of how it went for IIG, right, in Gatineau. It was, at first, nothing was happening and it was super hard. And then, once we got a few of the right people together, like the right brains together, something interesting started happening. Something started growing, and startups started finding value in our network. And that process is continuing today. So this is what I would ask, is we want, what? To create a critical mass of talent, experts, coaches. Maybe it's not yet existing in this room, but if you have in your networks people that you know who can contribute to this community, this is my call to you to bring them in. This is a QR code leading to a WhatsApp group. And communities are built on various tools, WhatsApp, Discord, you name it. Please join this community, and together we are going to build something really interesting. My hope is that once we get enough people on this who are interested by Web3, and you guys are in for a treat because Josh is coming up after and he's going to give you a smorgasbord of interesting insights into the Web3 industry and where it's going. And then, of course, we have Niles, who's going to from real-world experience in the company that he's building. But once we have that critical mass, imagine what we'll be able to build on top of the community, which is the fundamental substrate. So, have you done that yet? Are you able? I see a few people with their phones. Is it possible? Yeah? Thank you. So on that note, I will cede the mic to Josh, and I'll give it back to Veronica then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And Mike is available also afterwards if you want to connect with him. So, merci. Next we have Wesley Clover's very own Josh Saraton, Manager of Investor and Analyst Relations. Josh works just a few doors down from me, and his focus is on portfolio management and investment for Wesley Clover. Working with many of the Wesley Clover portfolio companies, Josh offers mentorship and guidance on raising the profile of companies with investment and for with the investment community. Passionate about many things, Josh is really passionate about Web3 and the metaverse. So Josh, come on up and walk us through why building a Web3 world in the National Capital Region is important.
Sorry, I don't hold mics very often. So what's Web3? Web3 is not a vertical. It's the next iteration of the entire digital landscape from the convergence of several different technologies. And these technologies make peer-to-peer interactions for network commerce and society. These technologies reduce centralized platforms, middlemen, big tech, as the key managers of information and value flows. Users own their data, identity, content, and participate more as shareholders. So why do Web3 in the capital region? We already have all the tech ecosystem components and more. Web3 supports maintaining our ecosystem's relevance in relation to the Canadian tech landscape. And I bring this up because I go to lots of events across Canada, and Web3 and the communities in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, I'm connected into all of them. And Web3 is something that's very top of mind in those different ecosystems. And by us jumping in on it, we will be able to attract and build the next generation of innovation startups in the capital region and retain the talent here as well. And how we do this is by catching the Web3 wave, because it's already begun. And from an investment point of view, the market is, flush with cash, lots of funds full of different levels of funding, but they're allocation hesitant right now. And if the timing of Web3 somehow aligns with when they have to start allocating that cash, I really see a large amount of it starting to chase this next wave of technology. And the upside in this space will be massive. And the world will look very different 10 years from now than it did 10 years ago. So a little bit on the timeline. So Web3 will not overtake Web 2 in the enterprise space before the end of the decade. But it will begin to chip away at different aspects, and the key attributes of the value offered will be in the user-consumer space first, which is what we're seeing with e-commerce and gamification through different platforms like Fortnite, etc. How I'm viewing the builders of these companies are on the attributes of their users and consumers as it relates to experience, identity, and ownership. So I will not go through all the technology on Gardner's circle here, but I have picked out a few key ones that I think are very relevant to our ecosystem specifically. You will also notice that I did not bring up AI. That's a whole other presentation, or you can meet me at the bar after for a teaser. The 5 technologies chosen in this list here are related to the infrastructure Web3 needs in terms of digital and hardware. And it wouldn't be Canada if I didn't bring up 5G or 6G. So there is no Web3 without the next generation networks. There are some locations around the globe that already have full 5G and are building out their 6G networks and are beginning to experience a lot of what Web3 has to offer. I want to stress the importance of the networks because we will not experience much of the Web3 in everyday life for another decade at the current rate unless something accelerates these infrastructure projects. And make no mistake, that will affect our innovative competitiveness. We have a 5G lab. Let's do something incredible with it. So this is where the magic is, hyperscale edge computing. This is how we turn the world into a living mixed reality matrix through massive sensor deployment of decentralized high-speed data processing in real time. We have the tech, talent, and potential partners here in the park already. This will really showcase the power of real-time data. We have companies that can contribute to this. I'm sure the Canada North Business Association, if you make it down to Hub 350, they'll be able to let you know what some of those companies are. A shared, persistent, and dynamic 3D map of the real world overlaid with digital content, AR Cloud. It can be used to create navigation systems, immersive AR games that are seamlessly blended into digital and physical elements, and interactive shopping experiences. For shopping experiences, I recently seen what Zara is using it for. And you stand in front of a sensor, and it can tell what size the clothes will fit you, and it also scan your style and compare it with their catalog of what you could wear. So this type of stuff is already being implemented already. It will be very much like sci-fi shows, Blade Runner, Albert Carbon, all the different stuff. Spatial computing is what I'm really interested in. Anyone who's been talking to me probably in the last year and a half, I probably only talk about the metaverse for the most part. And so this is the area that I find very interesting. Defined as 3 related but different technologies through which users experience the intersection of the physical and digital world. And here is where the Web3 attributes begin to become more obvious in terms of experience, identity, and ownership. So now we enter the metaverse. So the caveat is the metaverse is not here yet. We are still building it. If you find the idea of the metaverse difficult to accept, I would just say check your phone. How much time do you spend on social media, YouTube, streaming, gaming? This is just the upgrade. And it is trending that over 70% of the users will be under 40 based on today's demographics. And combine that with shifting demographics of spending power that matters as boomers move out of the purchasing power driving seat. It's really the Gen Z, millennial, well, I'd say younger millennials, and then whatever they're calling the new one, that's really driving the metaverse. And I would argue that the new generation's already driving it in terms of their Fortnite games and whatnot. And guess what matters to them? Ownership, experience, their digital identity. So Web3 and the metaverse often are mixed up as the same thing. They are not. The best way to think of it is Web3 is decentralized data of the individual, and metaverse is spatial engagement. And just on that last point, NFTs are not pictures of cats, but they could be. The metaverse is not just B2C. The industrial metaverse, I think, is incredibly interesting. Most of the examples most people have heard of is e-commerce and gaming, as that are what most of the news is showing. But in the enterprise space, we have communication and collaboration, as well as industrial immersion taking off. At Mobile World Congress this year, they were offering metaverse as a service. And that was being used similar to what you would use a Zoom room for, or if you're doing an event space. And so as you look at these different areas, the digital twins you can use for simulation and modeling. You can do project collaboration, think about teams, but a little bit more tangible. And then industrial immersion for product design, where you can significantly reduce the costs of prototyping by implementing real-world physics in the digital space. And then sending those products to smart factories, remote monitoring and control. And you can also use digital twins to remotely monitor and control these physical systems as well. There are companies like Nokia, Siemens, BMW, and Bentley Systems that are developing all of this. So all of this seems very futuristic and extreme and unreal. However, I assure you it isn't. Most of everything I've mentioned has already happened, and I'm reporting it in the present and not the future, as this is what I see when I'm going around to these different global events and talking to different companies and what they're building. There are definitely challenges, but that is more to do with scaling issues and technological ones, and it will take time before it can work in smaller population centers. This is an area of interest. I recommend engaging with Web3 communities, whether it's here or elsewhere, and base your strategy around community co-creation and stakeholder value creation, as this is not a small market. So the last of the selected Web3 technologies is blockchain, tokens, and cryptocurrency power. Cryptocurrencies that power the business models and economics of Web3, which supports new business opportunities. The Web3 world's virtual economy is enabled by digital currencies and NFTs. You know, and I would consider this, over 11% of the US invests in crypto. And once it hits around 30%, it'll be unstoppable short of turning the internet off. This is one reason why regulation's been ramping up, and believe it or not, crypto has its place, and it has its place in Web3. And I wouldn't underestimate the power of blockchain or dismiss honest brand engagement as chasing a fad. The asset trading NFT market burst last year, and it's moving out of hype and into mainstream, is what I would argue, as many very large, capable corporations are working through the commercial applicability currently. So I monitor Web3 along with everything else, tech-wise, and I do believe it is the next tech wave. It has, in my mind, officially begun based on what I'm seeing in other markets and global industry events. It's moving fast. It's time to catch the wave. If you want to dive into more Web3 topics, join the community. Michael gave up the QR code earlier, but you can find me on LinkedIn if you need to directly. And, you know, just to kind of say what Michael has to say, a community is only as good as its members, and we need enthusiastic Web3 interested people and experts in relevant technical fields to participate. And I figured, why not a quote? So, for all the naysayers, all truths pass through three phases: ridicule, opposition, self-evident acceptance. And we're probably in the first stage right now with Web3. With that, I'll hand it back to Veronica. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you for walking us through. Now for the main event. Are you ready? I'm pleased to introduce Nazim Ahmad, that goes by Naz, well known to the tech startup and entrepreneur ecosystem here in Ottawa. He is co-founder and CEO of Remix. Did I say that correctly? Excellent. Yep. A platform that empowers creators to grow their Web3 communities through digital rewards, blockchain-enabled physical products, and exclusive memberships for over 20 years. Really? 20 years? You don't look old enough. Naz has been at the center of innovation and building digital products. One of his companies and a successful exit, Canvas Pop, many of you may have used that platform, became a leading local e-commerce brand in the photo to art space, growing to serve over 1 million customers. Naz is passionate about all things at the intersection of creativity and technology, and tonight he's going to take us through beyond the hype and how NFTs and blockchain technology are enabling businesses to solve big problems and deliver increased value for their brands and customers. As always, there'll be room for questions afterwards.
All right. Hi, everyone. It is so great to be able to be together actually in person. So many of you guys I haven't seen for many years since COVID, so this is very cool. Thank you, Veronica, for the kind intro. So I am going to talk to you about a startup now that I've been building for about a year now called Remix. And the title of my talk is Beyond the Hype. The reason I called it Beyond the Hype is last year there was a lot of hype and a lot of press coverage over NFTs, and they became synonymous with financial instruments that people were trading like stocks. However, that overshadowed the utility and technology behind NFTs. And I'll be speaking to you about how creators and brands are using Remix to create new monetization strategies for their businesses, building communities, and creating unique experiences. So, here we go. So Remix is simply a continuation of work that I actually started 20 years ago. So my background is actually molecular genetics. I finished my genetics degree from the University of Western Ontario, spent a couple of years doing software engineering at the University of Ottawa, combining software and genetics. I worked for a biotechnology company out of California for about 4 or 5 years, but all my nights and weekends I spent working on creative, entrepreneurial side projects. So today they're called side hustles. Back then they were just called creative endeavors. One of those projects was called DNA 11. It was a service that would take your DNA and turn it into pieces of personalized abstract artwork. So you go to a website, dna11.com, you pick the size and color of your artwork. We ship you a DNA collection kit wherever you are in the world. Keep in mind this is 2005, so it was pretty novel back then. You swab your mouth, send it back to us. It's not blood, it's just a mouth swab. I would go to a lab, I would extract the DNA, I would sequence it, photograph it, print it on large pieces of canvas, and ship it to everyone around the world. Now, I did that out of my 750 square foot condo out of the market here in Ottawa. That turned into $1 million a year e-commerce company. It was a wild experiment going out of control. 75% gross margins, which is really nice because you can sell artwork for however much you want. And finally, I started selling their product through the Museum of Modern Art in New York, through all their design stores, as well as in Tokyo. So, with DNA 11, it was a nice niche business. It was a great way to learn about startups and learn about e-commerce. Then 2007, the iPhone launched. And when the iPhone launched, all of the focus was on the camera, as opposed to the BlackBerry, where all the focus is on email. So as soon as we saw the iPhone launch and it started growing exponentially, and since all the focus is on the camera, obviously the number of mobile photographs were going to grow exponentially as well. So we figured people are going to want to do things with those mobile photographs and create physical products. So keep in mind, this is back in 2008, so it's pretty novel. So we launched a sister site called canvaspop.com to allow anyone to take your mobile photographs and have it printed as large pieces of art. That company, or that sister site, took our revenues from 1 million to 1.8 to 3.6 to 5 to 7 to 8. I finally got that company to 15 million in revenue, but more important than 15 million in revenue, highly profitable 15 million in revenue. And I think that's very apropos today, because I haven't seen too many companies that actually create positive EBITDA. So I will go to the next slide. Now, CanvasPop was the epitome of a technology-enabled company. So we built a lot of hard tech that was able to fuel our brand, become the leader in our space. So for example, we built our own custom ERP system that absolutely ensured that we delivered our product in the most efficient manner compared to all of our competitors. Number two, we opened up an API. So if I'm a mobile or web application and I want to monetize my images as large format artwork, I could plug into our back end and use our infrastructure so the mobile or app developer didn't have to build any of it. We started building communities. So we obviously had a big photography community, both with mobile and professional photographers. But then we started building applications across different verticals. So we built a gaming application for several video games where users of those video games can create personalized art based on content of the video game that they play. And that started opening up an entire gaming community that were using Canvas Pop as their main provider for printing. We also created a tech and art community as well, where we invited creative coders to talk about how they used AI to create generative art applications. And we had an entire community of art and tech coders that were using our services as well. Finally, we built an internal platform called ArtKit, which we called ArtKit. And it was essentially a way for us to be able to build these personalized art applications very easily in different components. So you can imagine a big box of Lego blocks. Each Lego block is a block of code. One Lego block can scan an image and tell you what it is using machine learning. Another block can remove background. Another block can add filters, and so on and so forth. And it can tap into other microservices on the net. That allowed us to build applications much, much faster than our competitors, and that was a piece of technology that really differentiated us in the space. Finally, we had a phenomenal culture of super hardcore technical engineers and amazing creative people working in harmony, and I think that's hard to get a really good balance of. So summer 2021, we started getting some acquisition offers. To be able to understand our true worth, we hired some iBankers to be able to look at all of our metrics and how they benchmarked amongst all of our competitors. All that creativity that you see in the front end ultimately turned into a very high quality business. So our focus on creativity, community, technological innovation allowed us to have the best metrics in terms of lowest cost per acquisition in our entire industry. So we hardly spent any money on marketing because we were tapping into communities and using novel products for other sites to be able to link into the thought leader and the creator in the space. We had the highest gross margin. So all of these companies that were competing against Costco and Amazon and Shutterfly, we came in and created novel products, so we had the highest gross margin because we weren't playing the race to the bottom. Finally, we had the best revenue growth in terms of the top end to a percentage of net margin as well. So we're growing nicely, but keeping a good amount of profit at the net margin. And finally, we had the highest amount of organic traffic. So we really optimized the mobile optimization of our site. Google likes well-optimized mobile applications to show up first on SEO, so we got a ton of free traffic compared to our competitors. So finally, summer 2021, next slide, I was able to sell that company, $30 million, all cash, all up front. I was a majority shareholder along with Celtic Ventures. BDC was here as well. Where's Rob Shaw? He was one of my, there's David and Rob. Those guys have been with me for many years. They've had to put up with me, but they were two amazing supporters for many years. And you know, when they first invested in a canvas printing company, everyone was kind of looking like, are you serious? But they invested in my team, and they knew that we were building some serious, some interesting software in the back end that we could potentially spin out and create a software company, and that's exactly what happened. So huge thank you to you guys. Hopefully they'll write me another check, so I don't know if that worked or anything. After that sale, I did a couple of things. Number one, I took our core team that was building the ArtKit solution over to my new startup. So I had my CTO, my head of AI research, Zach James, my CTO, Paul Spencer, and my co-founder and chief creative officer, Mike Montgomery, come over to the new startup. We raised $3 million safe. Toby Lutke, CEO of Shopify, led the round along with Celtic, as well as BDC came in. And we started studying the intersection of art, technology, creativity, and started looking to solve problems for creators in that space. So finally, as we were starting to do this, I was actually looking at the on-demand manufacturing space, since that was a lot of our background. Then we started seeing headlines like this, and I'm sure many of you did. So a very famous digital artist by the name of Beeple all of a sudden sold a digital image through Christie's auction house, a very reputable firm, for $69 million. So I was super skeptical. It was a JPEG that was secured on the blockchain as something called an NFT, But instead of just dismissing it right away, my team and I did some more research. So as we dug a little bit more into NFTs, we discovered two groups of people. One group were the traders. And the traders were looking at NFTs as financial instruments, and they were flipping them to be able to create profit. You can see here the top NFT marketplace called Blur, which is really focused on these traders. I don't even think you can see the artwork. You're really focused on the metrics over there. That, to me, was not intellectually stimulating. It wasn't interesting for my team at all. But then we started finding a new group of people. And this group of people were the creators. And they were using the utility around NFTs and the technology to do a few things. Number one, create a new monetization model for them and create a new high-margin digital revenue line item for them. Number two, build communities around them so that they can monetize communities directly as opposed to going to third-party platforms and building their communities there. And then finally, being able to tie all sorts of unique experiences to these NFTs. That, to me, was interesting. So we started moving on to build some interesting problems at Remix, and I thought that I would spend a second explaining what the hell an NFT is. And my father is here tonight, 96 years old, PhD, physicist, chemist, 100 publications, patents, 96, I think, 96, right, Dad? Oh, he can't hear me. That's okay. Now, he is wondering what the hell I do. So, so this explanation is for you because he's been seeing spinning shoes on my website, and I think he told all my relatives in India that I make shoes. I don't make shoes, so this is what we do. So an NFT is simply a token that sits on a blockchain and is associated and represents ownership of a unique asset. So the problem it solves is it allows ownership of digital assets and the sale of digital assets, and it also accompanies who the owner is and who the original creator is of that particular piece of media. We can go to the next two slides. It can be artwork that you can associate and tokenize on that chain. It could be videos. It could be any piece of digital content. The next thing it does is it contains on the block something called a smart contract, which is essentially a legal contract made of code that can be executed on upon certain things that happen to that token. So I'm going to get into the characteristics of these NFTs, which is what interests me. I don't care about the speculation. I don't care about the financial instrument part of it, and I don't think that's sustainable. However, the technology in the blockchain side and the utility around NFTs can be revolutionary. So, unique characteristics. Number one, it creates a brand new monetization channel for both creators as well as brands. So for me, from my commerce background, what I saw was high margin product, the ability to increase gross margin and monetize directly to an end consumer. Number two, I saw the ability to create communities through shared ownership of these tokens. And what communities do, just like how Canvas Pop, I had the lowest cost per acquisition in the space, what communities do is it allows creators to not spend so much money on marketing to create a following. Next is, it's the ultimate certificate of authenticity. So when we worked with artists, we made a lot of limited edition prints, and they would create 10 pieces, they would sign them, they would send certificate of authenticities on plaques, and we'd ship them all around the world. This is the certificate of authenticity that sits on the blockchain, that's programmable, and that tracks ownership from one user to another with all of the history of that particular digital piece. So it is just a far better certificate of authenticity than any other piece of technology. Finally, in the smart contract, you can actually programmatically create royalties for the original creator of that piece of media. So for example, in the smart contract, you can code that the original creator of that piece of artwork or that piece of media can, let's say, get 5% of all royalties every time that piece of media or that token gets sold in the future. So imagine now you're an artist, you're just starting out, You sell a group of NFTs for $50. 3 years later, you become one of the biggest artists in the world. And then an individual that sells an NFT a few years later for $300,000 now, because of all the work that you've done, well, programmatically, 5% can go back to the original creator, dropped in their crypto wallet, which is one of the most powerful concepts that I've ever imagined. Finally, there's secondary markets. So you have the ability to resell these NFTs on secondary markets as long as there's a demand. I don't really focus on that part of it, but if you do support a project, and that project, which is only probably 1% of all projects out there, but if it turns into something significant, you can resell that on secondary markets for profit. Finally, you can connect physical products to the digital ownership of the NFT as well, which I'll get into in a moment. And finally, last but not least, token gating. And to me, forget about everything else. If just token gating alone is the utility, that is also revolutionary. So I'll get into token gating. What is it? So token gating is the ability to scan a crypto wallet for a particular NFT, and if you have that, it then can unlock all sorts of digital content for that NFT owner. So number one, it could be unique content that's only given to that particular NFT owner that they paid for earlier, supported the project. Ticketmaster just implemented token gating. So if you have a particular NFT, you can get access to special events and buy tickets specifically for the NFT holders. Number three, there's physical clubs now that are opening up, and then they fund the project through selling 10,000 NFTs, and then you get access to these physical clubs around the world based on that NFT. So for anything, it's going to be a black card on steroids. And then finally, you can create unique pieces of software or maybe new features of the software for your most loyal fans or the most loyal people that purchase NFTs. And this token gating now can create special experiences for your NFT holders. Okay, so how do you enter Web3? Web3 is based on community. And if you can, and they say in Web3 it's called minimal viable community. If you can build a community for something that you're working on, over time you can monetize that community in different ways through tokens and crypto and others. Now, we knew that our team wanted to enter Web3, but we weren't sure exactly how to do it. We didn't want to just drop an NFT project. We didn't think that was interesting. So what we're really good at is building software tools. My team with all this experience, my chief creative officer used to design watches for Montblanc. He has worked for Disney. He's built products for the NFL and others. My head of product design was former Shopify. He was former WordPress. And we had a really phenomenal, talented team in building products. So we thought, why don't we build some software products, give them out to free to the Web3 community that can solve a particular problem that they're having, and through those software tools, be able to build that community. And over time, we could potentially create a solution for them. So we saw this intersection of digital fashion and NFTs. So we started seeing large companies, Tommy Hilfiger, Balenciaga, Gucci, be able to take their wares, put it in avatars in video games like Fortnite and Roblox, and be able to get, exposure for their brands in those different metaverses, in those different video gaming platforms for a younger generation. So the way we looked at that is this is a brand new form of creative expression. And there has to be then some very easy to use web-based tools for creators to repurpose all of their 2D artwork that they've used, very easily put it on 3D wearables, create hundreds of versions of these, sell them as NFTs, and tie a ton of utility to them. So what we did is we built those tools. We started building web-based tools for creators with no 3D experience to be able to take 3D models in a web-based format. They would come into our platform, they would take all their existing artwork, they would press one button, and they would miraculously get superimposed onto these 3D models. They'd press another button called Remix, and our generative algorithms would create hundreds of versions of these. We then created storefronts for our creators to be able to sell these NFTs as pieces of digital clothing. Now, our first artist that we worked with, Cychrome, he was the lead artist at SneakerCon. He ended up selling his collection out in 48 hours. He had a phenomenal following, and he had a great community they built on Web3. So this following would really purchase anything from him because they were big supporters. Now, what we want to do is we want to look at these as utility, so we tied all sorts of things that end consumers can do with their NFT that they purchase from Remix. So number one, you can see that NFT in AR. So we created recognition or body recognition, be able to view it in AR, the wearable, and be able to share on social platforms and tag the original creator and tag Remix, which is a form of creative expression for the end users. So next, we created a showroom. So basically, it's an avatar showroom that our end consumers for our creators are able to take the virtual clothing that they purchased off the creators that they follow, and they can see it on their avatars, download the content, share it across social, and so on. We also associated the ability to have all 2D and 3D content downloaded from the wearables so that followers of these creators can take that content, bring it into 3D software, do other creative projects with them, and they have the rights to do whatever they want. So it was almost giving our creators the tools for their fans to play around with their content. Finally, we figured out how to take these wearables and convert them into wearables that could be worn in Roblox, so different gaming platforms, and then different metaverse platforms like Decentraland and Sandbox and others. One of my favorite projects is the bottom right here. Those shoes have not been created in real life, but I really want a pair. I don't know if my wife will allow me to wear them, but anyway. That is an artist called Ray Crazy. He created these shoes through his 3D software, and he was looking at that as almost sculptors. He sold 200 versions of these. He used our software to be able to superimpose his artwork on it. He pressed run button. Through our algorithms, we created 200 versions. Those NFTs sold past the crash because he had such passionate followers. And that was, to me, the epitome of creative expression. So I will go on to the next slide now. Finally, we launched something called Remix Radio. We have these Twitter spaces that happen Tuesday and Thursday. We have a phenomenal community manager out of Los Angeles. Her name's Taylor Starr. She is the one who has our relations. And we have creators and entrepreneurs that come along to talk about all the products that they're creating in Web3 and digital fashion, others. So we built a phenomenal Web3 community. Now, next slide. So we built this community through technology, value creation, and creative innovation, very similar to the community built with Canvas Pop. Then, as I started working with all these creators, and they were busy building their communities, we noticed some recurring problems that were occurring with all these creators building their Web3 communities. So, few things that they've all been experiencing. Number one, these are just creators. They're not looking to sell these NFTs as financial instruments. So when they sell these, through anonymous people with just crypto wallets, they don't have any of their contact information. So if they want to follow up with them or create a list, they only have a wallet address. Number two, technology and creative tools started growing so rapidly that there's so many platforms to build on, and they started losing access to build on all these different platforms, getting access to technology to build different creative experiences based on their work. Next, it was important to communicate with holders of their NFTs. Today, they use a platform called Discord. It's super complicated to set up. We have our own Discord architect that works full time on how to set these things up. And they're not really built for creators, they're built for large companies. Finally, they had entire audiences that they built in their Web 2 platforms through TikTok and Instagram and others that they couldn't bring over to their Web 3 journey. Why? Because most people don't have a crypto wallet. Most people don't own Ethereum. Most people don't, play in the sphere, so there was an entire crowd that they had already built up that they're not able to monetize because there's too many barriers of entry. Finally, they had so many Web3 projects happening, they didn't have a place to consolidate all their projects. And then last but not least, they're all looking for one creative community to be able to support them as they started moving from Web 2 into Web 3. So we built Remix to solve this problem. So Remix is a platform that helps these web creators grow their community through exclusive memberships and rewards. And I'll show you how the platform works. So this is one of our artists. His name is Sabit. He's based in Los Angeles. He has a global following, and he sells out of every NFT project he ever drops because he's got just a great community that he's built. So this is one of his projects called Bad Bunnies. He sold 1,111 of these digital NFTs, these Bad Bunnies, to his community just only a few weeks ago. Sold out very quickly. And all these holders of the NFTs now have obviously paid money for these digital assets, and now Sabit needs a way to be able to nurture that community, reward that community, and keep their engagement. And that is what Remix solves. So next slide. So he has the Remix community page that he gets published. So we offer a community page that he publishes, and we actually token gate it. So he can drive his NFT holders that he sold. He made $20,000, $30,000 on that drop. He can then bring them over to the Remix site. We will recognize whether that fan has the token or doesn't have the token. If they do, then we unlock all sorts of different rewards that Sabit has been able to use to reward his users based on the tools that we've created. So I'll go to the next slide. All these rewards then get unlocked. These rewards are built through the tools I showed you before. So what type of rewards? You can create digital fashion for metaverses like Decentraland and Roblox. You can tie events or gallery showings to these NFTs, and you can tie them to ticketing platforms to be able to offer it specifically for NFT holders. You can connect unique pieces of digital content or digital media only for those NFT holders. Many of these things are for free, and it's a way to nurture that community and give back to that community and keep their engagement. Finally, our platform actually takes email addresses from these NFT holders. So now Sabit owns an email address that he can then remarket to and keep more of a Web 2 communication with them. Now, the way we built our rewards platform is we actually tap into other services and other tools out there. So we integrate into Shopify, so then our creators can come into our platform and they can create a token-gated experience where holders of the NFTs that they sold can open up unique places on their Shopify store and offer specific products only for those most engaged fans of these NFT holders. Number two, we're working on with a company called Off the Chain. What they do is they create physical products and they tie NFC chips to them, which are tied to these NFTs, and you can then open up all sorts of experiences from AR to e-commerce coupons for their store, and you can actually add more digital services to these chips or these pieces of physical products over time. Now, if you are, I'll stop there. If you are an end user, you can now collect these membership cards from all the brands and all the artists that you follow, and you'll get notified every time they launch a new reward from our platform, increase engagement on their side. Now you'd ask, well, how are brands using the platform? So this is Rolly Shoes. They're probably a $30, $40 million retailer out of Australia. It's launched by Vince LeBon. He's designed shoes for Adidas, New Balance, and other global brands. And he really focuses on community, very similar to what I did on Canvas Pop. So he wanted to figure out a way to offer NFTs to his most loyal fans, but tie a ton of utility to it. So we have an application in our back end called Collab by Remix. So what he's able to do is we connected him to an artist named Cychrome. lead artist at SneakerCon. He has a phenomenal Web3 following. So I'll go to the next slide. Rollies now has 3D versions of his shoes, of his actual physical shoe that he's created. He uploads it into our platform. Cychrome then adds the 2D textures to the artwork. Our algorithms will create hundreds of versions of these digital shoes, and the two will drop an NFT collection. Now, Rolly taps into a brand new audience with Cychrome. Cychrome is an artist that he's going to be able to share revenues based with a brand that's able to help market it. Now, both players are winning and doing things in a really joint, collaborative way. Now, what ends up happening is Rollies then launches a community page on Remix. If you hold that NFT, you can actually unlock then the physical version. So he has a factory, he's able to do on-demand printing on his shoe. So they're aiming to sell about 300 NFTs to most loyal followers. That will unlock part of his Shopify store where you can then order the digital shoe. He creates it, ships it to his end consumers. Now you have several parties working together and winning. So you've got an artist now that's collaboratively worked with a consumer brand, getting exposure. You've got a brand now collaboratively working with artists and getting exposure to a new Web3 audience. And finally, the end consumer has a physical product that is tied to ownership. It's unique, it's a limited edition run, and you can then sell these as limited edition pieces with the NFT along with the physical item as well. So it creates a win-win scenario amongst brand, artist, and consumer. We are now launching pilot community stores with dozens of artist partners of ours. We're speaking to creators every day. These are Web2 creators now. They're looking for new monetization ways that want to sell NFTs tied to utility. And we're speaking to brands as well that want to come in, offer new products and unique experiences based on token gating and collaboratively working with all these amazing culturally relevant artists. So it's not just Remix. Every single consumer brand right now has done a partnership with a Web3 brand to be able to tap into this whole new world. Nike purchased Artifact, which is a Web3 company based on digital fashion. They then now created something called .swoosh, which is a co-creation platform that they're building. Tiffany has connected with a Web3 community called CryptoPunks, where they created unique collaborative jewelry pieces together. The list goes on. Also, every tech company, and I'll go to the next slide. I ran out of time, so I didn't add any more logos, but three tech companies, obviously. Salesforce is building an entire digital rewards infrastructure so that consumer brands can offer NFTs as rewards to their fans. And Salesforce is building software that allows you to look at on-chain and off-chain data to get more insight on consumers. Amazon is launching their NFT marketplace tied to physical products this spring. Shopify has doubled down on all their development tools to be able to offer more token gating experiences and other Web3 experiences. So finally, I will leave you with this. This is the first NFT made in 2014. No one knew what it was. No one knew what it could turn into. And I always say internally that our company wants to be problem-focused, not technology-focused. So we're in the business of helping creators and brands build healthy communities. Now, whether we accomplish that using AI, ML, AR, VR, Web3, NFTs, it doesn't matter. Any of those technologies, as long as it helps our end users, is great. So with that being said, thank you very much. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on LinkedIn.